Fuck, kill, spread death and destruction as they destroy. Cause it's the cheapest because we abuse our labor.
This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek, and we've covered the issue of AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics many times in our program, and how this is affecting working people when AI is introduced in the workplace. And joining us today is Eric Johnston, and he is a Teamster in Montana and has had firsthand experience with the introduction of infrared cameras in trucks, which millions of workers face on their jobs, the dangers of these cameras. So welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So why don't you talk about how you got into becoming a Teamster, Eric?
Well, it's kind of a long story. My dad was a Teamster, and I worked with him in back in Piscataway, New Jersey, when I was just a kid in a summer program. I was going to go play some football, and so they said anybody that was registered to go to college that year could come in and work Teamster wages. And with that being said, I did that, made some really good money. I was back in 1984 to give people, just an inclination of how I benefited from being a Teamster. I think I was making $11.87 an hour back then. So I was able to save up some decent money to go off and play some football and get an education at Carson Newman College for a short amount of time. And on my winter breaks, I'd come home and I would work the docks of Jersey. I'd work, with my Uncle Mike, who was a dock worker. He worked for Sanborn's Motor Express back in the day. I worked for an array of companies, CF, Yellow, ABF, New Penn, many others. And, I just always stuck with my blue collar roots. I was able to make a good living, have good benefits. And I was newly married, and we wanted to stay with the good benefits and good wages. So we came all the way out to follow work with ABF out to Montana, where I eventually got on with UPS as a feeder driver. And I've been there for the past 30 years, going on 31, serving as a senior feeder driver, a shop steward, involved heavily with our local 190 on many different issues, both in the community as well as representing our members on big issues like change of operations and these cameras. And pretty much sums it up in a quick summary.
So obviously, health and safety is an important issue for working people. Trucking can be dangerous, and having proper health and safety protection on the job is an important issue. So how did you first come to question what was going on with these cameras that were being installed, and how were they installed? Was there any discussion with the membership about cameras or with the union?
No, there wasn't at all. It was pretty much just pushed them right in our face and started forward. No warning labels came with it, no instruction, no training, no anything. We turned to our local and, they said about all we could do was file a grievance. And I wanted to file one right away because they were very annoying from the first moment they came into the trucks. They had all of these audible sounds and signals that just drove you crazy. Distracted driving, lens cap obstruction, over and over again, 400, 500 times a day, tell you this kind of stuff. And silliness, just wasn't even accurate. I'm being blinded by the sun as I'm driving during daylight hours. And it's telling me I'm obstructing the lens cap because I'm using my visor to stop my face from being blinded. And as you can see, I'm wearing sunglasses. I have these infrared blocking sunglasses. They're really, I've grown accustomed to them because I've become quite photosensitive. I had surgery on my eye just recently, not on my eye, but it damaged my eye because I had a tumor removed. Don't know if it's related to the cameras or not, but the possibility sticks in your mind because one of the concerns was with me was when I looked up what type of a tumor would grow like this and why. It said overexposure to radiation. And I don't work at a nuclear power plant. I drive here at UPS. It's a very low level radiation, but if you happen to be sensitive to it, it can harm you. So, the genesis of it all, I have to give credit to a person that I've become really close friends with and an ally. His name is Tony Winters. He resides out of the Salt Lake area in local 222. And he said, you know, that technology they have in there, Eric, has infrared in it. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you ought to fight it from that direction. I said, well, you know, why don't you join me? He goes, I'll gladly join you, because he tried to bring it up at a local union meeting. He was potted down a bunch of nonsense about them using this in the medical community, so it must be safe. But if you look into any of that stuff with the medical community, they put on protective gear and protective eyewear. They limit the exposure time to mere minutes so it doesn't hurt you. And none of those precautions are given to us. So we went down this path. He wasn't going to have any headway with his local. We had great support at our local, at a 190. We had Jim Sumas, our principal officer, and Darren Davis, our business agent, you know, fully get engaged with this. And they tried to help me every way I could in order to bring a thoughtful safety grievance on this. But we were fighting against all kinds of obstacles. The higher ups at the IBT just did not want to help us out. They wouldn't help us out with their industrial hygienist that they have employed. They wouldn't help us out with their safety committee, or their technology committee barely got back to us, hardly responded to us, ignored us in many cases. And we were basically told that we didn't have a case. We just had to deal with this, and this was going to be the way it was going to be. And we reached out to everybody possible, and right up to the, you know, Sean O'Brien is definitely aware of this whole issue. And it's very disheartening to say that, but it's just the truth of the matter. So rank and file took it into their own hands, you know, a lot like, you know, what we're talking about with our fearless slate, having rank and file get involved and have power shift from the members on up. And we raised money. We did our investigating. We brought this camera to a laboratory in Peabody, Massachusetts, to International Lighting Technologies, one of the premier laboratories for testing the calibration of devices like this that use radiation. And we got all these results, and we brought them back, and we handed this back over to the OSHA and actually to NIOSH. And there's current open investigations from both of those agencies right now that I believe is eventually going to assist us in our safety grievance, because NIOSH originally, we put in a HHE request, a hazardous health evaluation request with them prior to DOGE being implemented and cutting their funding. And they were scheduled to come out here to Montana and do an on-site test of these cameras, get a spectrometer reading and a radiance reading, find out just, you know, what we were looking at, you know, with these cameras. Since then, you know, they got defunded. They had to send us an email and tell us they could no longer investigate our situation and complaint. But they resumed it just recently when they got funding back. But now we're back to where we have the government shut down. So I just can't catch a break here. Otherwise, we'd already have an answer on this stuff, because we received an interesting letter from one of the top regional safety people with UPS. And it stated the most important part here to mention is that they claim they were following the IEC 62471 code, which is the reason they can have these in these trucks, which I will argue they are not following it. And they said that these cameras did pose a low risk, a risk factor 1 instead of a risk factor 0, which is a low risk for radiation with this type of device, IR. It's basically being broadcasted on our face at about 863 nanometers, maxing out at 940 nanometers. At the distance, they say it's a low level risk. But what they don't consider is when you dig into the IEC, because like I said, we've been investigating this for 2+ years. And, you know, my partner in crime with this has been Mike Moxley out of Local 29. He's on our fearless slate as well. And Mike, you know, with the initial information that we got from Tony that this stuff had infrared, and then I did a show with him on a little show called Union Shop Talk. And it took off like gangbusters with all this information, because everybody is quite upset that we could be possibly getting harmed by these cameras.
And how many drivers are affected? I mean, UPS apparently has been installing these in trucks all over the country?
Yes, they're pretty much everywhere right now, and so we have literally thousands of drivers. If you look at Lytx, which is the camera model, the 300 and the 400 SF series, they're approximately to current date installed. 2 million of them are installed in commercial trucks. And I think there's roughly about 16 million drivers in North America. So it's a good chunk. And then there's all these other companies, and they all use a very similar technology. And this, IR has lots of positive attributes to it, but not for long exposed times, and especially not to your eyes, because the human eye is very sensitive. We need them to drive. And when we're driving in a truck at night and our pupils are dilated to 7 millimeters, and we're trying to see the road up ahead of us and soaking in all of that, trying to soak in every bit of ambient light to be able to see, we don't detect the infrared. So it comes right in through our eye lens, it goes into the retina, and it causes a minimal amount of damage at this distance. But that compounded damage from a 60 to 70 hour work week, 5 to 6 days a week for a 25 to 30 year career, you can have all these debilitating injuries. And things that bring up, increased risk factors are things like drivers filling out safety concern forms like they did in our case. And when you have, 80% of the drivers filling out a form saying they have some sort of eye irritation or worse, I mean, you got to take this seriously and look into it further.
Well, isn't that what the union should be doing if they have a health and safety department, doing surveys, finding out questionnaires to all the drivers at UPS? Are you using this technology? Have you had any eye problems? Do you think that would be something that should be done by the union to protect its members, its drivers?
Absolutely. I mean, they should have done all this. They should have done the testing. Hey, this cost us $5,800 to get it tested, and we had to pass the hat around to probably a group of maybe 10, 20 people that all chipped in that did this. And the Teamsters didn't have our backs on this. They didn't want to get to the bottom of it. I spoke to the safety, the head of the safety committee for the Teamsters, the head of the technology committee for the Teamsters. We had our union officials reach out to Teamster industrial hygienists, and they all blew us off.
What did they say?
Yes, they basically didn't return our calls, or said they'd get back to us, or that there was no real concern there. And meanwhile, yet I have countless people calling me, talking to me every day. Matter of fact, we're going to get ready to do another big push out there with health and safety concern forms, because we would like to get thousands of them instead of just the hundreds that we already have. Because I believe there's many more people that aren't attributing this. Like, the biggest factor that I see as being the scariest thing is the photosensitivity issue. And, people can be genetically photosensitive. Generally, fair-skinned people don't fare well with IR because, when it comes to their eyes and their skin pigmentation, they have less melanin in it, and they are affected more drastically. That being said, there's also another factor, and that could be anybody that is behind a wheel that takes an agent, which they like to put in the IEC 62471 fancy verbiage of concomitantly on agents while being exposed to infrared lighting. Well, that means medications and supplements. And when you look at a lot of the medications and supplements, there's about 136 different medications that are very quite common, regular anti-inflammatories, ibuprofen, aspirin, all these kind of things, birth control, heart medicine, diabetes medicine, chemotherapy medicine. It's antifungals, antibiotics. And they'll give you warnings saying that, you probably shouldn't be out in the sun, because the sun not only does have UV rays, it also has infrared rays. And no one had ever planned that we'd have artificial infrared shining on our drivers both day and night in these type of commercial vehicles. And when these people are exposed to this, they could have all kinds of detrimental side effects: migraine, headaches, dizziness, fainting. These aren't conducive things for driving. Now, just the fact that the possibility of this exists, it should be enough that they should have never been installed in the first place. But they never educated us on any of this. They never told us about any of this. Now they're openly admitting that this has happened and there is a low level risk, and no one's doing anything about it except for our small group, NIOSH, right now. And we're trying to get NIOSH to actually write a recommendation review and then submit that to OSHA to put it into law.
So you're saying drivers all over the country who are faced with this technology, AI infrared cameras, are actually being put in danger with their eyes because of this introduction of this technology. And the NIOSH is starting to move on it, but of course the government shutdown means they can't do anything. And the company knows about it. You've told the company. Also, you've told your union, the Safety Department and Technology. The unions are saying that they're going to investigate AI and the effect of AI. It seems like that's a serious issue for health and safety for millions of workers, particularly drivers.
It is. I mean, this expands even further, out of the union shops and right into non-union shops and just the industry in general. And guess what? This type of technology is getting ready to come to a brand new car sometime soon that all of us will be exposed to as well. And we submitted this in our information and documentation both to the government agencies, and we have it prepped and ready to go for our second round with a safety grievance as well. And that is a report done and published in SAE. I believe it stands for Society of Automotive Engineers. And anyway, it was very hard to get my hands on this periodical that they wrote, but it was these scientists out of China for a Chinese automobile company that were looking at these inward facing drive cams. And they said, after we've looked at this, we realized by the angles and the way this hits you and at this low level, it can have the possibility of causing some retinal damage. We need to relook at this because we don't think the current guidelines, like the IEC 62471, which is the only one, really addresses this issue, because none of it looks at long exposure to any of this stuff or the the amount of time that anybody would spend in front of one of these things, and the possible dangers. They're looking at basically one bulb or a series of bulbs that you could be in front of at a very close range for maybe 16 period an amount of time that adds up to be about 16 minutes. And that's the only test they're going by. And when they did these tests on rabbits and cats and monkeys years ago, they never fared well. They all developed all kinds of cataract and lens problems.
So, I mean, it sounds like they're treating workers like guinea pigs.
They really are. They really are, in a sense, because with the way that they put this out in the commercial industry first. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. In our investigation, we realized that they had this in the military at first, and it failed there. The Department of Navy had many issues with this particular brand as well, Lydex, and they didn't want it around Army munitions. They didn't want it around fuel that was being unfueled or refueled. And they had all these precautions set forward where they said, yeah, we got to move this thing about 10 feet away from all of these different things that it could have adverse effects with, including the driver. And that's, you couldn't do that with inside the cab of a vehicle. So they did away with them. And I think it was a failed military application. You have all sorts of stuff, but you have to file, freedom of information requests from the military. It's very hard to get your hands on just how infrared has affected so many people there and soldiers and whatnot, with all the different uses with weaponry and stuff. And so then they take this failed military application, they push it out onto the general public with being in commercial vehicles. UPS installs all these things. No one even up at the highest levels knows. I just talked to like a regional safety guy, and he wrote me a letter, and he stated the IEC 62471. And he stated how UPS really cared about. It's a total incredulous letter. Really cared about safety and does their utmost to follow all of these safety procedures. And in my conversation with him, he had never even read the IEC 62471, so he doesn't even know what he's talking about. And we were in grievance, proceedings on a safety grievance with this when many of the people at UPS are like, "Are you sure they're even using infrared? And how can you prove it?" Just dumb stuff.
I mean, it's in the trucks. How could they ask that question?
Well, you go on the company website and it brags about how it's using 8 high lumen infrared bulbs to film drivers even in the dark at night. And then I got internal UPS documents sitting right there in front of me in the grievance panel that says, "Hey, you know what? The other safety systems, I forget what they call them now. It's just slipping my mind, but it didn't go far enough. We need this infrared along with AI to track the driver's eye blink movements his entire shift. So we can tell if he looks away, closes his eyes too long, is dozy, he's going to fall asleep." I'm like, wow. So they knew all of this. And then you get into a grievance proceeding and they play Donnie the Dunce. It's unbelievable. And I find it really insulting, but I'm really kind of hurt.
I mean, it sounds like it's criminal, really, because I mean, workers are getting
They,
sick. Their eyes they're having cancers. I mean, and they're going ahead and pushing ahead with it.
yeah, I mean, I think at one point in time, no one knows about this. I mean, if a very astute gentleman didn't tell me, named Tony Winters out of Salt Lake, and then if I didn't follow up with that with Mike Moxley out of Virginia, and if we didn't work tirelessly for the past couple of years, we wouldn't have been able to inform as many people as we have. But once this gets out here on bigger and bigger platforms and gets talked about more, like we're doing today, people are going to start putting two and two together and go, "Hey, you remember when was really feeling bad when I got done with that heart surgery and I couldn't understand why, whenever I was driving, I felt real sick or whatever the case may be." They're going to put this all together. And unfortunately, UPS, because they wouldn't listen to us a couple of years ago and simply cover these cameras and turn off the inside infrared devices with a $15 Lidex lens cover, they could have solved the whole problem, but they refuse to because they just want to spy on their employees. Because some automated voice telling me distracted driving as I'm dozing off is no way going to wake you up if the window being wound down doesn't, or the rumble strip you're running across doesn't, or the loud music you're playing to stay awake at night. And I've been around a while. I've done this for 30 years driving and been a night driver for over 20. And yeah, if those type of things, you can still fall dead asleep while you're trying to keep yourself awake. A simple, "Oh, distracted driving is going to save the day." Are they kidding me? And it's just an outrage that they needed to do this to us in the first place. I mean, they had many other Bendix safety control features that let you know if you were doing a lane departure and would give you a little automated buzzer inside the truck. That was just fine. We had to deal with that, but and we're not an objection to the outward facing camera that basically can save us in cases of accidents by justifying what we had go wrong. But this inward facing camera absolutely does nothing but safety. And we have a litany of drivers that would fill out these forms saying that the lights distract them, the automated noise commands and cadences distract them, along with, not realizing that they're being hurt by this infrared because none of them can understand why they have irritated, itchy, watery eyes all the time when in front of this stuff.
And of course, if you don't have a union like the Amazon workers, who the Teamsters are trying to organize, you have an even less protection and rights to go to arbitration and have grievances. I mean, imagine an Amazon driver what they face.
Oh, absolutely. We would have never been able to carry it this far without a union for sure. But I just wish that Sean O'Brien and the current administration would have given us some help, and will still reach out to give us some help because we could have a win here. I mean, we literally have, in writing, the company, to me personally, not to the union, because I'm fighting this on my own, uh, that there is a low level hazard risk. Now, there's a little thing in OSHA called the general duty clause. And if anyone wants to pull that up, it says that we're entitled to a free, hazard free workplace. And if there are any hazards in it, there is a right to know clause that has to allow an employee to be trained and aware of all hazards in his workplace. That never happened. That ought to be a major violation right there. And
The Teamsters could file a national grievance, couldn't they, at UPS?
oh,
If UPS
absolutely.
is installing this AI equipment, these infrared cameras, illegally without notifying the employees, without warning that there may be hazards, health hazards, if you have injury or problems, it seems like it's a pretty much shut case, open and shut case. I mean, they did not warn you, even though you said, according to you, the Navy had the same problems with its introduction.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could go even one step further. I wasn't there for the bargaining information with this stuff. This is back in the Hoffa administration, and there was I think the head of safety back then might have been some guys out of Denver and Cleveland. I won't say their name and throw them under the bus now, but I have paperwork on that as well. And the litany of internal people during the height of COVID, when UPS said they wanted to put these things in our truck, allowed it to happen. Did they ever, during the negotiation process, say that they were going to use infrared technology, which poses a hazard to ocular and dermal health, on their drivers? And if they didn't, that should be an NLRB charge, and that is unfair labor practice, and these cameras shouldn't be in here in the first place. But I don't think there's anybody with the gumption in the current administration to fight this. And we've got some real issues. I mean, you got NLRB issues, you got OSHA issues, we got NIOSH looking into this. We've tested this stuff ourselves, and we know exactly what type of danger there is with it. And let me say this, with the danger aspect of it and it being listed as a low level hazard, that's kind of being kind. And I'll say that because the simple fact is there is no aversion response. And they figure aversion responses with all this type of lighting. Now, aversion response is you can blink, you can turn away, you can close your eyes, you can put on a pair of sunglasses, all these type of things, which you would do in normal settings if it was being introduced with UV light. But since it is infrared light being used at night, our eyes don't detect it. We can't blink, we can't turn away, we can't do any of that stuff, and that pushes us into a higher risk factor. And then when you compound that with all the people that have complained about it, that pushes it into a higher risk factor. So I would say that this stuff is a risk factor of 2 or 3, in my opinion. But with all this being said, I'll just sum it up real easy. It's like, how can you tell somebody you can't take life-saving medicine that you need when you go to work, or you can't take a simple couple of aspirin or ibuprofen for your back pain while you're driving the truck? Because if you do, you could risk all kinds of bad stuff happening. And what's terrible about that, if that's compounded over a career, like say you take 4 or 5 Advil every day, because you need that, because all your aches and pains and arthritic problems many of us have at this point in our career with UPS, and you do that for 10 years in front of these cameras, the debilitating diseases that has the potentials to cause, UPS would not even want to imagine the type of legal litigation that would cause.
Well, couldn't the union actually sue UPS for damages?
I would say so. If they would get engaged at all, it'd be nice. I mean, if any of them would pick up a phone and call me, call us out of local 190, call Mike Moxley down at 29, and say, hey, we've been hearing what you guys are saying, and we're going to assist you. We've been begging for help for a long while now, and all of our cries for help go totally unanswered.
And I mean, the whole issue of AI, it's being driven by getting rid of workers, getting rid of drivers.
Absolutely.
That's what they want to do.
Well, that's the other side to this too. This is you can't make this stuff up. I mean, This company Lytx has been sued because they were operating in Illinois, where they were copying people's biometrics and driving habits and selling that back to the AI companies to teach the damn trucks to how to drive so they can replace us eventually. And they're one of the few states that have biometric laws on the books, and they won a class action lawsuit. But yet, get this, they claim that the UPS drivers and other union drivers under contract collectively bargained for this, so they're still subject to this, while all of the other individuals that are not are getting them pulled out of their truck in just Illinois alone.
So they're using the union contract as a justification for not protecting the union drivers.
Yeah, yeah. It's really quite pathetic. I mean, they really need to get off their butts about this issue and help us out, because we're just about ready to solve it ourselves, because soon as a recommendation, once the government is back up and running, hopefully sometime soon, and I'd say within the next couple of months, we should have something in writing from NIOSH. We'll have some real teeth in that to bring it forward. Hopefully, we wouldn't even have to bring a safety grievance at that point. We could just say, hey, here's what they recommended. The very best of the best, the professionals in occupational safety and health have written about this. And, if not, I guess we'll have to see them in court eventually, because they just, fail to live up to the contract and keeping us safe.
And the issue of AI, of course, is not just Teamsters, doctors, teachers. They want to get rid of teachers. They want to get rid of healthcare workers and nurses in California, where I'm from. They're laying off nurses at Kaiser, and they're bringing in AI to replace the nurses.
Right.
They want to get rid of teachers. It seems like the way it's going, they're basically saying we don't need workers anymore. Get out of here, and we'll replace you with AI.
Well, it always, cracks me up when they do this, because, say they do replace us all. Who's going to buy any of the products they have to sell then? The last time I checked, AI and robotics and automation don't make paychecks and don't spend money and go out to eat dinner or travel and vacation or go to the doctor. And so how does this all work? So you can replace me as a driver with an automated truck to drive and deliver something somewhere, but then how does anybody pay for any of them packages being delivered? They can't, and that's
So
really
it's undermining the system of capitalism.
it is.
Needs people to buy the products that capitalism is producing.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I think it was, Henry Ford's had some insight on that. And he was like, I'm going to start paying my workers better because they could then buy the automobiles that we're creating. But that seems to be all lost in the current day. I mean, they love this stuff and they want to replace us as soon as possible, it seems like.
And the ideology, it seems, of these techno fascists, Musk and these other people, is deregulation, let it rip, and let these companies do what they want without any regulation. In fact, they tried to pass a national bill saying that states couldn't regulate AI.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're all for that. Harm us now and pay us later. Hopefully, I'll tie it up in court long enough to where we give up. I mean, this is it was the same kind of stuff that they said years ago. We have all kinds of examples you could point to, but like asbestos, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Everybody had to have it until it started killing people. And this stuff going on with us now as truck drivers, it's a slow burn and it's not immediate. And the only type of things they have to look at in this industry is old stuff like glass blowing and welding, and it's different when you're looking at this type of technology and a driver sitting there exposed to it for the long amount of hours that we are, even at a very low level. It's not no risk, it's a low risk, and a low risk over a long amount of time could equal a lot of problems, in my humble opinion.
And it's
And
not just in trucks, also trains. They're Teamster train workers. and
You know,
they're in the same situation.
talk with some of those guys. I haven't. I have a buddy that works at Amtrak, and a little bit of investigation that he looked into for me was that they were filming most of their engineers from back behind them, so at least it wasn't hitting their eyes. But I don't know if that's the same in all trains. But I, I would love to speak with some of those guys and find out if it's different in some other places.
And they're eliminating the workers. They want one-man trains on 5-mile trains,
Oh
and
yeah,
they don't have proper health and safety derailments. It's out of control. Communities like East Palestine are being contaminated.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
one derailment after another, where they cut down labor, and they want to automate all the trains. This merger of Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern is the oligarchs. Let's have the owners take care of all the trains
oh yeah.
on the one train. I mean, it seems like this monopolization is
Oh,
really.
absolutely. And, it'd be nice if we had, some leadership in our union that would, reach out, to all of the other unions, not just the Teamsters, and stand behind them when they're, you know, beating up on their workforce and, or when they're laying off how many hundreds or thousands of federal employees. And like even in this current shutdown now, it's quite horrible. And about all he's willing to do is just basically put the blame on all of Congress and take these weak stances where he aligns himself with, for some reason, with anti-worker politicians. I don't get it. I mean,
John O'Brien is apparently supported the position of the Republicans. Pass the bill and don't shut the government down.
absolutely, and that's horrible. That's gonna affect me personally. That's gonna affect you personally because our healthcare is gonna go off the charts once 15 million people get thrown off their healthcare and start showing up in emergency rooms instead of under the Affordable Care Act, where they have many preventative care, which brings down the cost overall of medical expenses, it's for the whole industry. But I guess he's not educated on that apparently, or doesn't care. I mean,
And what you're running this slate, fearless. What would you do if you were in charge of the health and safety department or in charge of the technology department? I mean, how would you really defend your members, fellow members, and make sure that they didn't have to go through what you've gone through and other workers, other drivers?
well, for one thing for sure, I know myself, I know John Palmer, Mike Moxley, and we're all on the slate, and right on up to the top guy, Richard Hooker. We'd never allow this to happen without asking the basic, simple question: is it safe? And if it is, will you put it in writing saying that this cannot harm any of our drivers, you know, for the entire career that they're behind this device? And the moment that would have been posed to any of those individuals, they would have stepped back and said, well, there are some minimal risk, and then the cameras would have never went in. But no one was astute enough to do that,
Well,
unfortunately.
all you have to do is make a statement. Is it safe?
Yeah, is it safe? That's all they had to do, was stand up and say, is it safe? And they would have said, well, relatively, I guess, And yeah, I mean, we gotta represent our people better than this. I mean, this is an outrage. I mean, from the moment I looked at this and I did a Google search and I started finding out the dangers of infrared and what it could possibly cause, and the further I looked into it, I'm like, somebody this was their only job, because I did all this while working 60, 70 hours a week as a feeder driver, and basically have been the guy that spearhead all of this with help of a lot of others. I didn't do it alone. I mean, my brothers and sisters were awesome, and they know who they are out there throughout Local 190 and out in Virginia. I mean, it was a joint effort, but it was all rank and file. The people that had the money and the people that had the power that could have brought industrial hygienists into this, could have brought scientists into this, could have brought lawyers into this, could have fixed this problem probably in 30 days.
And it would help the Amazon workers who you're trying to organize. I mean, in other words, if the
Oh,
Teamsters
absolutely.
really got on it and protected your members, then you could go to the Amazon workers and say, look, this is what a union means. We're going to protect you, because there are a lot of Amazon workers who probably are having the same problems. A lot of truck drivers all over the country that are non-union.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The way the technology is right now, and that may change, but right now, There's no way to film anybody in a dark cab at night without using infrared. And if you're using infrared, that is a low level risk that could harm people. And it's that simple. And they can't get around that. And then with this particular camera, I think it's even worse because they claim it doesn't work during daylight hours, but it does, because we had a little accident in the lab when we were testing it, and we found out that, well, one of the technicians was trying to record uh, the amount of irradiance coming off of the camera from the bulbs in a lit room, and it wasn't working. So then he bumped into it and it went off the charts, and he realized, oh, this thing is activated in daylight under motion, and it's on constant once it's dusk and dark. And so that's something that Lytx didn't even admit to us, but we found that out in our experiments in the lab. So that was pretty interesting stuff too.
So you're doing the testing and actually discovering
Yeah.
what these cameras are doing that otherwise they're not going to let you know. They're going to keep it a secret, classified secret, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I had a list of maybe 8 questions, and they were all pretty much straightforward for my original grievance. It was like, uh, how strong is the infrared on these cameras? Has any human studies been done? Has there been any prolonged human studies on chronic exposure? What about people that are photosensitive, either by medication or genetically? Have you thought into those categories of individuals that could be affected? Because it states right in the IEC 62471 that there are no exposure limits for people that are photosensitive or made photosensitive by medications, and yet they put them in anyway.
It's
And
blatant. It's pretty blatant.
yeah, and then my last question was, does UPS promise me that this device is safe and won't harm me or any of my fellow workers at the duration of our careers? And I had not one answer to any of those. Yeah, true story.
I think your questions hit them on the head. They
Oh,
didn't know what to do with them. You know, that was like, uh-oh.
yeah. After those questions, they pushed back with a one sentence statement, and it says, "We are following the IEC 62471," which we kind of realized what it was, but then we delved into it and we bought a copy. Most electricians have them, and we read all through it. And we read in Appendix 4.0 on exposure time and limits. Oh, there's another one I didn't even throw out there. There's so many goodies in this. It states in that code that you're not supposed to have anybody in front of this for longer than 8 hours. And then look at the length of our shifts. And that would be for a healthy individual, not a photosensitive individual. So their recommendation is not to exceed 8 hours. Be considerate of people that are photosensitive, either genetically or by medication, and you probably should be okay. So, with all that being said, they did not train us at all with any of it, didn't tell us any of it, and still continue to harm people on a daily basis, potentially.
Well, I mean, all the Teamsters that are being affected by this, and they've got to be hundreds of thousands
Hmm.
of Teamsters. I mean, it seems like if they all got together and raised hell, they could force the union to do something. They could force the company to stop it. I mean, because they're all being collectively affected and harmed
Oh,
physically.
well, that's going to be my next big push. Is I'm going to try to put something thoughtful out there on these different social media venues and get just thousands of concerns form filled out on safety and health issues with these cameras, and then I'll put that all together and forward that off to the people at NIOSH, because they were telling me that if here's what we've already have some stuff, but we never asked them the question: are people seeking medical attention or plan to seek medical attention? And I was told by somebody at that organization that if 60% or more people say that they're receiving medical attention or plan to, with a particular device like this giving it harm, it'd be hard for it to stay um, in these vehicles. That's what I was told. So that's going to be my next big lift, is to do that along with the rest of their investigation carrying forward.
Well, I mean, workers do have the power.
Oh yeah, they just but here's the thing. I mean, I didn't know about it until somebody told me, and then I investigated. Our local union didn't know about it, and most of the people I tell about it, they're kind of their jaws dropped. They're like, really? They're kind of shocked. And I've got a couple helpful videos out there online that I've been sharing, and it kind of dumbs it down a little bit, but it explains it in a very layman fashion that, yeah, this type of technology isn't 100% safe. It just isn't.
And we'll put a link to that video because those are useful.
Yeah, they are, because they help people understand exactly what we're talking about. And here's another thing that nobody figures in this day of technology and AI and everything. They just keep on bombarding us with more and more and more and more stuff. I'm old enough to remember when, we didn't have microwaves, we didn't have dishwashers and a lot of this stuff. But we have all this technology, whether it be the LED bulbs, the high beams hitting you coming down the road at night that are super bright now, and televisions that, I will say, at least the televisions give you a warning. They'll say, hey, this show for photosensitive people might have some bright lights on it. You might not want to watch it, but we don't get that with these cameras, unfortunately. But that being said, there's a factor of you know all this compounding on top of one another. We have what exists in nature, and then what we have is all of this artificial stuff we're being hit with, and what the final outcome can do to our health. There's really no studies on it yet. And that's what's terrible. I mean, you're going to get a certain amount of infrared and UV light when you're outside in the sun, and then you're going to get it when you're in these trucks all night and in front of all your devices and computers and laptops. Well, you look at what they've done for office workers. They've come out with those blue lens blockers, right? They're able to do that. But you know what they can't do that for? A truck driver driving at night that needs to see the road. And IR is worse than blue light. So how do they not think that this is an issue?
Well, it sounds like the wild, wild west, the way they're introducing this technology. I know when scanners came in, uh, a lot of people were told that this is going to help you out and this is not going to hurt you. And carpal tunnel syndrome,
Oh yeah.
millions of workers in the grocery industry got carpal tunnel syndrome. And I know in Sweden, they call it socialism, but I understand the law is before you can introduce new technology into a workplace, you have to test it to see how it's going to affect the workers. That's like ABC. How is it going to affect workers? I think in Sweden, they saved a lot of people from carpal tunnel syndrome by testing the use of these scanners.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
seems like that should be a requirement that if you're going to bring in a new technology in the workplace, how is it going to affect the workers?
And it should be, and we're it's doubly shameful with this is happening to union employees here, Teamsters. I mean, they should have protected us with this. And the fact that they haven't up until now, I mean, to me, that's why I'm running. They need to be replaced. I'm tired of doing their job for them. I may as well get paid for it.
You're doing the health and safety work and you're trying to get them to pay attention to what their job should be,
Yeah.
which is finding out what's going on with Teamsters facing AI. And I know that Sean O'Brien in Sacramento said that they'd stopped all AI and robotics in UPS. What is going on with the introduction of AI and robotics? And has it been stopped or is it?
No, no. As a matter of fact, and that was another thing of his poor negotiating skills when he negotiated these higher wages for hub employees. And we were all looking at each other, all of us guys that talk all across the country. So I talk with drivers from Chicago and Denver and Texas and all over, being a feeder driver. And then we talk with our package car guys too. And they were all aware of it. They're like, yeah, he's going to give them all this extra dollars per hour in wages, and then they're going to turn around and eliminate their job with smart hubs. And that's exactly what they did. And they continue to do it. And matter of fact, Carol Tomei was just on like some sort of a women's conference with being a CEO, and she was talking about UPS, and she was bragging about how they're coming up with a new hub that's going to basically have no human involvement. They're going to have robots unload and load the trucks and all this automation in the hubs. And it's going to, save them all this money and be so cost effective and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, great.
And they're moving ahead with it. It seems like this robotic factories and robotic moving, and there's no controls whatsoever.
No, if they wanted to really have some good bargaining on this, they would have told them that you're not going to be able to roll this out or anytime soon, or without offering other opportunities for these employees to be uh, trained and have it all paid by UPS for other avenues of employment within the company, internally or externally, so that they're just not left fired and destitute without benefits and wages.
Well,
But
it seems like, I mean, the introduction of AI and robots should benefit working people.
yeah.
Instead, it's benefiting the billionaires, and that's why they're doing it. They can get more money by getting rid of workers.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the same could be said for the air conditioning. How easy would it have been to say, hey, we're going to make this a strikeable offense with air conditioning in these trucks, and we're not going to allow you the opportunity to go out and buy a bunch of trucks now and then say, oh, with all of but this for the contract is signed and you'll put air conditioning in units of new trucks, but you bought up enough trucks now where you're not going to need to buy a new truck for 10 years. I mean, who didn't see that one coming? They should have said, no, there's retro packages to put these air conditioning units into our existing vehicles. Every vehicle will have air conditioning put in them,
I
period.
mean, basic human right to have a proper health and safety environment when you're working,
Yeah,
especially with the environment and global warming. And
it makes you want to pull your hair out when you go and you read the technology segments about the inward facing cameras, right? So get this, it says in our language right now, there shall be no inward facing cameras, and yet there are. And then you confront them about this in management and the union, and they go, oh, they're not cameras, they're sensors. What? They're playing semantics with words. They're sold as a camera, they're installed as a camera, they're used as a camera, but they're going to change the word. They're going to call them sensors.
so
So
it's already in your contract
this is
language to actually stop this.
yeah, there should be no inward facing cameras. They shouldn't be used for anything but coaching experiences for people in a training process within the first 30 days. And then UPS will be the first one to tell you, hey, we don't look at any of the recordings inside. We don't have the ability to look at that until somebody gets in a fatal accident and law enforcement says, hey, do you have the camera footage for inside there? Oh yeah, let's contact the company that actually records and stores all the data for UPS that we could call up in a moment's notice and find out what every driver is doing on any given day in any given month. But yeah, they're not cameras. Okay. Okay, I got a bridge to sell you. It's unbelievable. We've had, and I've known this from working with our local, with some different outfits. Cisco, I believe, was one of them. They had a couple of drivers where a pretty bad accident had happened, and this supposed sensors that weren't recording anybody, it would only record triggered events. 30 seconds before, 30 seconds after, and all this. They showed the damn guy's whole 10-day shift right there on a camera in a courtroom. So yeah, they're full of it.
So
And
they use it when they want to use it and then deny that they're doing it.
oh,
It's
absolutely.
like Elon Musk and these accidents in Tesla.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that's yeah, that's lets you know that AI isn't quite ready yet.
So do you think people are ready for change now? I mean, more and more people are angry about what's going on, the shutdown of the government, the threat to healthcare. It seems like on every level, working people are up against it.
I do. I think we're ready for a change. We're ready for a change. In our country, and we're ready for a change in our union because we need to start standing together with our federal workers that are unionized. We need to start standing together with the UAW. We need to start standing together with the AFL-CIO. We're not doing that currently. We're like an isolationist group out of the current Teamster administration that just sits back, dictates everything from the top down, and aligns himself with people that are anti-union politically, and then wants us to feel all warm and fuzzy about it. I don't get it. I mean, when you don't stand up for who's being hired at the head of OSHA, which is a former CEO of UPS and Amazon, that's a problem. When you don't stand up for who's being hired as the head of the FAA, which right now, my son's a pilot and he's a Teamster, and he says the pilots are really upset about this because the former CEO of Republic Airlines is now the head of the FAA. And what is he calling for? Less safety standards in pilots' requirements to be able to fly a jet airplane in our airspace. That's not safe for anybody. And where's Sean O'Brien on all these issues? I'm a rank and file and I know about it. How come he doesn't? And how come he doesn't speak out about it the way I am and the way the fearless slate is? It's a little bit ridiculous. And then you look at what he's done to what has been done to the National Labor Board. We don't even have enough people. They fired so many. We don't even have a quorum to make a decision. Do you hear anything coming out of the O'Brien administration about that either? So you got the National Labor Board, OSHA, and the FAA, and you got crickets. That's pretty sad.
It's dangerous.
It is. It is. And it doesn't show a unified front for the labor movement. And we need to have that. They need to know that Teamsters have their backs and they have ours. Every time somebody goes out there on a strike, every time somebody's walking a picket line, every time somebody has a problem on a shop floor. But we don't have that. We have, this kind of militant dictatorial regime that just wants to say, sit down and shut up. We know what's good for you. And I'm not buying it.
And these air traffic controllers now having to work stressed out without pay.
Oh, what could possibly go wrong there?
Well, I know in 2019, they were stressed out. They said it was a health and safety issue. And Sarah Nelson of the airline flight attendant said there's going to have to be a general strike. 4 hours later, they opened up the government. So they were worried these air traffic controllers were going to shut it all down with the flight attendants, and that would be the end of it. And that would cut Trump off at the knees if all the airlines shut down.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's going to be a big pushback from everybody. But what we really need is we need the head of the largest labor union in North America, the Teamsters, to be at the head of that charge, not aligning themselves with people that are basically crippling the labor movement from everything we just talked about all the way across the board.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for talking with us. We've been talking with Eric Johnson. He's with Teamster Local 190 in Montana, line driver for UPS, and been fighting not only for himself around these infrared cameras, but other Teamsters and other workers in this country who are being forced to drive with cameras that threaten their health and safety if they're on medication and spying on them, basically. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was a delight.